Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar about our SAP Mobile Warehouse Management apps. I'm happy that so many of you joined today during the holidays. We see indeed that a lot of customers are very interested in these kind of scanning applications because it gives them an answer to their problems about scanning in the warehouse. So, who are we? My name is Simon de Reper. I am a warehouse functional expert at Flexo, and I'm here to cover the functional part during this webinar.
And I am Nico de Lener. I am digital tech expert of today. So for the more technical part of the presentation, I will pick in there.
Okay, to start, some housekeeping rules for today. So everybody has been put on mute, so you can't talk to us. But what we can do is, of course, is using the question module to ask questions to us. And we will try to answer them as much as possible at the end of this session. And what we also have to say is that this session will be recorded. So this webinar is the first one of a bunch of webinars for our Flexo extension series. So today the first one is of course the SAP Mobile Warehouse Management apps. The next one, next week on Thursday, it's always on Thursday, is the SAP Mobile Maintenance and Service application. So it's a bit similar, but it won't be WM, but PM. And also interesting to mention is the Welcome Terminal Portal Accelerator. It's also very interesting for the warehouse managers because it will give them insights in their yard trucks that are arriving and so on. So also very interesting. So don't hesitate to visit our website and also subscribe to those webinars. The agenda for today. So I will start with the evolution of scanning in the warehouse. Next, my colleague Nico will give you some explanation about the content of the accelerator package for warehouse management apps. Then I will talk about the typical project approach for these kind of projects. And we will end with a wrap up and some answers to your questions. So the evolution of scanning in the warehouse. In the beginning, of course, there was no scanning in the warehouse. And it was only after some time that scanning was introduced in warehouses. So I will start with presenting you John the Scanner. John the Scanner is an employee in a big warehouse, and he really likes his job. He likes working in the warehouse, driving the forklift and so on. But the thing that he is missing now is being able to scan pallets and to get his picking orders in a digital way. Because at the moment, he gets his picking orders in a paper-based way. So he is in the beginning here. Next, you see that RF scanning became possible. So this is the next version of scanning. And in the end, we want to help John the Scanner with our mobile scanning apps. So John is at the moment, in fact, using our scanning 0.1 solution, the paper-based picking, no scanning, to be clear. So he gets his picking requests by paper, and that's all. On that paper, he sees the material that he has to pick. And when he picks the material from a certain bin location, then he indicates this bin location on the paper. and afterwards he or a colleague processes this paper in the ERP system. Of course, sometimes a colleague forgets to process this paper, which results in inconsistent stock afterwards in the ERP system, because no instant processing is made in the system. The productivity is also quite low because they can, for instance, spend 5 hours on picking, but they also have to spend 3 hours on processing everything afterwards that was noted down on the papers. Advantage is that the implementation cost is low. They will only need a lot of paper, but that's it. The first scanning solution of SAP was in fact SAP Console. So people who are already using for a long time SAP know this technology. So it's based on Telnet. But as you see on the screen, on the screenshot on the right, you see that there is no graphical interface. Also, additional server infrastructure is needed because you are using Telnet. So that's also quite expensive. And also the RF devices are quite expensive because at this moment in time, it's very hard to find devices that, that support SAP Console and the Telnet technology. As an advantage compared to the scanning 0.1, the paper-based one, we can now say that the stock is consistent because you scan everything and everything is handled immediately in the system. And the productivity is also much higher because you don't have to process the papers afterwards. Then the next technology that SAP introduced was ITS Mobile. ITS Mobile is using HTML, so you can just use your browser to make use of the scanning, of this kind of scanning. Another advantage is that SAP is also providing standard scanning applications, so standard applications for picking, put away, queries, and so on. Those are available and ready to adjust if needed. On the other hand, we must say, if you are a big company, it's very hard to have only one type of device. So you have multiple resolutions, and this means that you also need to resize all your screens for those devices. So that means a lot of work for your IT team, also in the maintenance, of course. And as you see on the right, the user interface is also quite old-fashioned. The newest technology for scanning applications is Fiori. So this is also the thing that we will sell to our client, John the Scanner, because the app design is responsive. They are a big company. They have a lot of warehouses. It's impossible for them to only have one type of device. They also use bigger RF devices in their forklifts and so on. So for the IT team, it will be very useful that they don't need to resize all the screens for all the devices they have. You can also use this on any type of device, on any platform, Android, iOS, and so on. Not a problem at all. And the user experience is, of course, as you see on the right, modern. On the other hand, we must say that SAP at the moment doesn't provide standard scanning applications. They only support it up to ITS Mobile. So for WM and EWM, you can use ITS Mobile. If you want to use Fiori, you need our accelerator package for WM applications.
Okay, so the accelerator package, what is it then? And I want to start off with a concept that we all know. So there is a concept of the iceberg where you have the top of the iceberg, which is very visible to everyone. And let's say that that is the scanning application itself, because that's very visible. Everyone is working with the scan device. That's very visible. And underneath the iceberg, you have a lot of complexity. Even you have that you also need to take into account. And this is where our package, our accelerator is working on, because you want to focus on what is important, the visual part, and the other things underneath you have, we want to unburden you of that. And those are things like, if we have what setup do you have currently? So do you have a gateway setup on premise? Is it hub? Is it embedded? Do you have a cloud platform setup, or are you thinking about it? Those are things to consider. But how will you connect to the on-premise system then? Also a very important topic. And next to that, you have the important, the module itself, in which you are working. Is it inventory management? Is it extended warehouse management? What is the impact on the solution? Is it still supported for that module? Things like that. And then last but not least, you have the device and the technology. What device will I use, and then what technology is supported for that? Or the other way around, what technology do I use to support my device? Things like that. And those are all very important things to consider. But we want to focus with our accelerator on what really matters, and that is the optimized warehouse, because that is what you as a customer are looking for. You want to optimize your warehouse, and that is why we have the UX-centered and fast app development approach, because then we can just focus on those things that are important to see what is your flow that we need to cover, and how can we make it happen so that you have your flow available as fast as possible. And our accelerator app package already has a few applications that we can start off with and accelerate with. And to see which ones we already have, Simon will take us through them. You need to unmute yourself, Simon.
Indeed. So I will guide you through the warehouse using our flows. So I will start with the receiving flow in the warehouse. What applications can we use for this flow? And that's, of course, the goods receipt application. So very simple to use. You will also see it soon in our demo. You just need to scan your handling unit, and the material is received, the stock is in your ERP system. Next flow is the put-away flow in the warehouse. So here you also have, of course, the put-away application. You only need to scan here the handling unit, and the system will tell you where to put your handling unit, and you can confirm it on that bin location in the warehouse. Other applications that are useful for inventory control are, of course, the stock count. So here you need to scan the bin location, and you can confirm the amount of material or pallets that is on that location. And last but not least, you also have the search goods application. Here you have multiple insights, so you can do it from the bin location, for instance. So you scan a bin location and you will see the stock, the material that is now on that location. Or you can scan the material, and then you will see on which locations the material is placed. Next is the picking flow. So for the picking flow, we need, of course, the picking application. How to use this application? You scan the delivery number, for instance, from a picking letter or a delivery note. You scan this barcode. Then the system will tell you which materials you need to pick and from which location, and you confirm them on, for instance, the goods issue zone. Also here, the packing application can be useful because sometimes you need to repack certain goods for shipment to your customer. And then the last flow we have is the shipping flow. Here, when the goods are loaded on the truck, you can use the goods issue application to post the goods issue on that delivery for the goods you shipped. Okay, let's proceed to our demo. So in our demo, we will cover some of the scenarios that are included in our package, not all of them, because there are too many and we only have 45 minutes, of course. Another important thing to mention is that here you will see that we type in all the barcodes. That's because we are making use of a PC and we don't have a barcode scanner here. So this is the reason why we type it in. Of course, when you use it on a real scanner, that's not needed. That's logic. We make use of the Fury technology, of course. So you will see that that the screens are very simple in use. Okay, so let's start with the first flow, the inbound flow, and let's receive goods. So for this, we scan the handling unit of the label that we printed. And you immediately get the message that the goods receipt has been posted in the system. So let's stay in this inbound flow and let's go to the put away. So here we will put away the goods into our warehouse on a bin location. So we start again with the same handling unit number. And we confirm here the handling unit on a bin location. And you get the message that the put away has been completed. Okay, that was the inbound flow. Let's now have a look with the search query to the bin location AB01, where we placed that handling unit 123, if the stock is really there in the system. So here we enter storage bin AB01. And here we can see the content of that bin location. We see material mod 1 with a quantity of 18 pieces. And we can also see the handling unit 123 on also the storage location is mentioned here. Okay, so the last flow that we now have to cover is the outbound flow. Here we will only do the picking. So we start with scanning the delivery number, the barcode. We provide the first material that we are picking. Here we need to pick 5 pieces. We will pick a little bit less, and the system sees this as an exception. So we have to enter short picking, and that's it. And we can now proceed with the next material, material 2. We enter the serial number. And the delivery aspect. Of course, if you don't use serial numbers, then you don't need to use this. This is a sample. So, of course, during the project, we can add certain functionalities or skip certain functionalities. That's of course possible. So we covered the inbound outbound flow during this demo, and we also used the one of the query applications. So you see that Fury is very simple, very straightforward, of course. Updates are also pushed directly to SAP. it's designed as minimalistic and simple and as simple as possible. So the amount of clicks and fields that need to be filled in is as minimal as possible, of course. So I think our John the Scanner will be very happy with this solution.
So we've seen the demo that shows us how simple the application can be and how intuitive it can be. There are a few highlights that I want to check with you. And first off, we have the hardware compatibility. So we've seen that it's a web development, so a web application, and this is specifically done because of the fact that it is more compatible with a lot more hardware, because we are not doing native development here. So we don't need to consider all the different devices. Of course, we have the browser that we need to take into consideration, but this is something that we take along with us in the project approach. So we have clear steps towards the solution, and this is covered there. But you have a lot more flexibility in devices because you are going web development here. So that's one thing, that's the hardware compatibility, and then you also have the backend compatibility. It doesn't really matter that you are on ECC still, or that you are on S4HANA, or what module you are using. So inventory management, extended warehouse management doesn't really matter, because our solution is module agnostic. So what does that mean actually? It's not that we just plug and play and it works just out of the box. It's just that when we set it up, we check together with the fit gap analysis what we need to do to integrate the customer system to the front end. But the front end actually doesn't matter what it is providing the input to. It doesn't really matter. So that's what we mean with backend compatibility and being module agnostic there. And then we also mentioned the UI. So in the UI, we use Fiori UX. And why are we doing this? Because SAP is really pushing this for years now, and it's a very proven UI technology now for them. And you see this also, their road to S4HANA is move everything to Fiori. So why not just do the same here and leverage everything that SAP is doing there? Because SAP has a lot of best practices, has a lot of time spent in design principles in Fiori, so leverage that. And on top, what we leverage with the accelerator package then is the expertise that we have from all the different projects, and we always see, okay, how can we further optimize it so that we have the best UX for this. Now the UX, so we talk about Fiori, and then sometimes a question gets popped up, what is the architecture here? And this is the most common architecture that you see now. So the on-premise deployment, where you have your on-premise system with your gateway, and it can be embedded or hub, it doesn't really matter. But this is a very common one. And a very interesting thing here, most customers, you probably already have it, because this is the basic setup in SAP almost. So you can, without having any additional servers, etc., leverage this architecture already. And then there is a second one, which is the cloud one, where you could consider cloud platform. So that instead of hosting the Fiori applications on-premise and on your gateway system, that you say, okay, I'm going to host them on the cloud platform. So that is also an option that you could go to. And that is also interesting because it opens the possibility to have external facing applications as well because of the cloud part, because it's more secure that way. So that's very interesting. And those are the two most common architectures that you come across currently. So that about architecture, but then what is the actual benefits now for you? So for the benefits, we want to look at it with 2 points of view. So we have on the one side our John the Scanner, because he's working daily in our applications. He really wants to be using applications that are intuitive, that are clear, that are easy to use, and that really support him so that his productivity is going up, that he has less errors or mistakes when scanning, that he has less administration to do at the end of the day. That's very important, and then you will be very happy. That's one side, but on the other side, you also have the IT managers and the IT department. We also have benefits for them because it's module agnostic. You don't need to think about, okay, our module, it doesn't support this, so we cannot use it. That's a non-issue. And then next to that, you also have the compatibility of the devices. So you have a lot more freedom in what devices to use, and use even multiple devices in your company. That's all possible. And then one more thing, and a very important word that everyone likes to hear, it is future-proof. So it is on the way to S/4HANA. It is using Fiori. It is using the latest, greatest, let's say. So it is something that you like to hear. So those are all benefits that you can have as a customer.
Okay, so then let's proceed to the project approach. How do we deal with this kind of projects? So on the one side, we have our building blocks. That's the accelerator package with our mobile WM applications. On the other side, we have our John the Scanner, our client, and he has, of course, his requirements. And then we combine those two and in a fit gap analysis. So here then we have some deltas, and those deltas, we also take them into account to develop and to further adjust our mobile WM applications. All this together is in fact our product backlog, our scope, in other words, for the project. And of course, we work in small sprints in this way to be able to communicate much faster to the client. Okay. That was it in a nutshell. So time for our wrap up, and then of course we will deal with your questions. We as Flexo, we are an advisor, and it's important to say that we won't push you to Fiori, to the newest technology, to our accelerator package. It all depends on some things, on your requirements. In case your flows are very standard, very lean, and you are happy with the standard SAP applications, and maybe you are only using one type of device, then you can just use ITS Mobile, no problem. It works. It's maybe not the best or the most user-friendly design, but it works, that's for sure. On the other hand, if you are using IM, SAP will never deliver scanning, of course, in IM, inventory management, or if you are using WM, then maybe you can use our accelerated package, because SAP will never develop Fiori applications for WM. WM is old, EWM is the newest technology, so they will no longer invest in their old platform. But even for the firms that are using, our clients that are using EWM, they are also sometimes choosing for our accelerator package for the Fiori applications, because Fiori is of course responsive. If they are using multiple devices, they can also benefit from our accelerator package.
Okay, so because the point of this whole webinar is more, the focus of this webinar is more the accelerator, maybe some highlights specifically to the accelerator and what it can do for you. So first off is the quick start in Fiori implementation. It's basically, we have some applications ready. We can implement it at your system, and then see what is the fit gap with what you need, and then we can start adjusting and extending the application. And this is a very agile approach and gets you started very fast. Apart from that, it's like we mentioned, module and hardware agnostic. So it doesn't really matter what module you are using. And the hardware, it is of course taken into account at the start with the workshops, what devices will be used. But you have a lot of flexibility there. And at the end, we really want that John the Scanner, the end user, is really happy in his work, in his daily work with the applications, because you will have more accurate stock, you will have better performance and productivity, you will have less paper, and they will not have to do administration at the end of the day, because they have been working the whole day, and then they have to sit down at SAP, for instance, and get in all the information and make some mistakes maybe there. So if all that is provided to them in a very easy manner, and you have an application that is also easy to use, because that's important, with not as much training needed as with other applications, then that's a huge benefit. And that is what we want to highlight with the accelerator package. And I think with those points, I would really like to thank you all for joining the presentation, and that we will answer some questions as soon as we can now. And if there are still questions unanswered, or you have other you want to have more details about the package, then please contact us at info@flexo.com, and then we get back to you as soon as possible, and then we can talk about what it can do for you as a customer. So I think we can move along to the Q&A now.
Yes, indeed. Let's have a look at the questions that were raised. At the moment, my Q&A, it's empty. Okay, that is the first question. Are the apps installed as real apps on an iOS, Android device, or do we have to use an industrial browser? That's a question more for you, Nico.
Yes, so the applications are not real applications like you have on mobile devices. So it's not a mobile iOS or a mobile Android, a native development. It is not that. It is a web development. So it runs in the browser. And what browser is used, that depends on the device. It can be a normal Chrome browser, but it can also be an industrial browser. So there are some pros and cons to using this or using that. But that is covered in the project approach as well. So at the start, we check, okay, what will we be using and why? So that's covered in that. There are multiple possible solutions depending on your scenario. You're still muted, Simon.
Okay, so the next question was, are all the apps based on an existing transfer order? So this is someone who is using WM clearly. So indeed, when you are using the put away or the picking application, then of course you need a transfer order, or in EWM terms, you need a warehouse task to be able to scan and to confirm certain pallets on certain locations in the warehouse. So indeed, the apps are based on already existing transfer orders. Correct. Then I will look for a next question. The next one in line. Good morning. How much faster is the handling for the operator compared to RF and ITS Mobile? Talk RF has a rather old screen. If I got the demo correct, the operator handling time seems to be equally time consuming. Well, in my opinion, the screens are more simple. so you don't have so many fields and so on. There are less screens also. So I think this is really faster compared to ITS Mobile. But of course, the big advantage of Fiori is, like mentioned, that you don't have to resize your screens for all your devices, so that's already a big advantage. And yeah, of course, it's nicer as a user, as being John the scanner, to use Fiori compared to the old screens. So that's for sure.
Maybe if I can also say something here. So the benefit in performance, well, faster scanning here. There are multiple steps. So if you're using paper, then of course it is faster. If you're using already scanning, then you cannot expect that the Fiori technology will have faster scanning times, for instance, as ITS Mobile, because that won't be the case. That's the same. The fact is that you will have cleaner screens and your flow will be much more covered, as in how you want it to. This can also be done in ITS Mobile, but it will look better. And like we said, it's not always our accelerator which is the best solution. Sometimes it is ITS Mobile, and it just needs to be considered on what you want to tackle in your company.
Next question, what is your advice concerning customers that use IM and want to use scanning? Very good question indeed, because we must say IM, that's not a solution for SAP to use scanning, in fact. But in smaller rooms or warehouses, it makes sense to have scanning, but WM with all the transfer orders or EWM with all the warehouse tasks and so on are too complex. So in this case, we can position IM as a solution. And indeed, with our Fiori application, it's also possible to use scanning. In this case, of course, without transfer orders, without warehouse tasks. So it will be less complex in handling, but you can also work, of course, on your material level with default locations, and then those locations are being used in the Fiori applications as proposals to put away the goods in IM. But of course, indeed, when you have a bigger warehouse, bigger rooms, more complexity, more complex flows, then don't use IM with scanning. Use WM, and for now, when you do a new implementation, use EWM and not WM, because EWM is the newest technology for warehouse management and SAP. Okay, next question. So development is via the web browser of the device or via the Fiori client application installed on the device? And that's a question for Nico.
Yes. So it can be both. We use Fiori client as well at some of the customers that we have. It's very easy to enable the application with scanning because the Fiori client offers a bridge between the device and the web application. So it's very interesting to have the Fiori client. But there are also implementations we have with other other industry industrial browsers, sorry, or just Chrome. So it depends on the devices that you have and what you want to cover, and based on that, we indicate what the best solution is at that point.
Okay. And next question is it not so that the goods receipt app is only available for retail customers? We were looking into this a while ago, but we could not make use of it. Indeed, there is a kind of goods receipt application also standard available for SAP. And indeed, you are right. If I'm not mistaken, that's only for retail customers. But our goods receipt application is also built on WM and also built on EWM, and this goods receipt application cannot make use of those technologies anyway. So that's only for IM. So this is the advantage of our goods receipt application. And next question, goods coming from external suppliers without barcode, how and when do you manage stickers to put it on package, and if you need to print just before send parts to client? Okay, so the part when you post the goods receipt can also trigger in the system the print of the labels. But of course here the first screen was also scan the handling unit, so then it will be too late. But we can still tweak those applications, of course. Another possibility would be that you take the inbound delivery as a starting point to post the goods receipt, or you post the goods receipt just in the system, which then will automatically trigger the handling unit labels. So those are all possibilities, and during the project we can still tweak the applications depending on your flows. So also, for instance, when you put in an outbound flow, when you put the pallets on the goods issue zone, we can set up the system, the backend system, in that way that new labels are printed as of that moment. So this is not something that we put into our Fiori applications. This is more something that we put in the backend in the WM system and the EWM system.
And maybe additionally, we are building scanning applications, of course, but there is always the fallback scenario where you cannot scan something and then you can just type it in, because there will always be a moment that you do not have something to scan and you just want to type it manually, so that is still there in those cases.
Yeah, indeed. And then the last question that I have here in my list is a question about offline usage of Fiori. So more a question for you, Nico.
Okay, so on the RF telnet scanning middleware has been put into place to cover the Wi-Fi disconnections, which can be happening regularly. Is Fiori covering this functionality? We do not want to re-log in every time there is a connection. Okay, so Fiori does not cover the loss of connection because it is web application, of course. And you have mobile services where you can incorporate offline usage and offline scenarios, but that isn't in the package. There are other options to consider. Of course, we have, for instance, experience where they have some kind of device with them, some mobile Wi-Fi, to allow them to just not lose connection when their warehouse is, for instance, maybe a bit older and outdated in infrastructure. And then they have some mobile Wi-Fi, which helps them to have connection all the time. And of course, the applications, they post the information always at the time when you scan. So we do not keep information in the application all the time, and then at the end of your, let's say, count, send everything, because if you then lose connection, you lose everything. But if we send it all the time, and you make sure that via your Wi-Fi infrastructure or some alternatives like mobile Wi-Fi, you make sure that you have your connection, then it should be okay. But it will not cover the offline scenarios.
Okay, thank you, Nico. That were all the questions that I had in my list.
Maybe one thing, since it is a project approach, and if offline is something that is really needed, then it just needs to be discussed in the workshops, of course. This is part of the fit gap. That's the plus sign of the accelerator. It is an accelerator and you build on top of it. So it's not, this is what you get and nothing more.
Yeah. Okay. We still have 10 minutes left, so if you have more questions, don't hesitate to raise them to us. I will still wait for some moments. Okay. Then I want to thank you for attending this webinar during the holidays and during also the Corona crisis. So thank you for being here, and don't hesitate to attend also the next webinars in this extension series. So please visit our website and check the next webinars. So thank you for being here, and see you next time.
Thank you.